Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. I have with me Professor R. Vaidyanathan, an expert on finance, politics, and current events. In fact, I consider him an expert on everything. And welcome to PGurus channel, Professor RV.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. It's always a pleasure to be part of PGurus channel.
Thank you, sir. Today, Professor RV looks like a brand ambassador for surf. The shirt is absolutely spotless white, shining, and it's only matched by his vibhuti. Professor RV, this recent event that happened, the arrest of 5 people in connection with the assassination attempt or the planning of assassination of Prime Minister Modi, especially when he's on the tour. What do you make of it, sir? Is this something that, some channels have been saying that, this is all a make-believe thing, whereas Dr. Swami has tweeted saying that he checked with the NSA and this was a real threat. What are your thoughts on this, Professor RV?
At the outset, I would like to stress the point that any such threat or any such possibilities should be taken very, very seriously. The reason is very simple. Unfortunately, we have lost one Prime Minister, Indira Gandhi, and another ex-Prime Minister who was campaigning for becoming Prime Minister, Rajiv Gandhi, in the recent times due to the assassination conducted by, established by the Punjab terrorist as well as LTTE. So it's not something which we should brush aside. It is required to be thoroughly looked into and investigated. And particularly in the context of Modi, there is more reason for it to be investigated because the social media was not active in the 80s and 90s. Now it's significantly active. And the amount of, the venom which is spewed on him as an individual is unbelievable, actually. This is, I've never ever seen this type of, plus the mainstream media also joins in this and mocking him or, on all type of very, very silly things and stupid things like, what type of a coat he is wearing, what type of button he is having, what type of hugging is, it's very unbecoming of any, and these are done by national level channels, actually. Second is, I think we should also note that the Vatican is extremely unhappy with Modi government, because without that, the Archbishop of Delhi would not have come forward and on all fours attacked this government in a very, very interesting fashion and asked all his followers to pray for, in a sense, a new government, which is followed by the Goa Archbishop in his own way, telling that there is significant amount of fear and terror created in this country and other. Anyhow, overall, the church is extremely unhappy. It could be due to 2 reasons. One is, some amount of curbs have been established on foreign funding of the NGOs. This has been a very major source of funds for many of these church-related groups, actually. And some years in the early part of the century, they went as high as 72,000 crores, not 1 or 2. And in all, they were estimatedly 40,000+ type of societies which are registered as NGOs. It's not very easy to even monitor them. And many of them were not even giving accounts to the Home Ministry if they are getting foreign contributions. There is a regulations on that, actually, and many of them were acting nonchalantly. They were getting funds for under various headings, but primarily they were using it for conversion activity. And also very interesting, substantial amount of money went into creation of fixed assets like buildings and these modern gadgets, then jeeps, then duster type of SUVs, in order for them to have smooth driving in the interiors and rural areas. I'm not trying to exaggerate the role of the church, because you should recognize that church has played a dubious role in bringing down many of the Latin American governments in conjunction with CIA, and recently it helped in creating East Timor from Indonesia as a separate country. Everybody recognized that the church played a very major role using its uh, using the reason that Catholics constitute good amount of East Timor, and then that has been cut off due to the activities of the church. So we have to be very alert and careful that there are forces both within and outside. The reason is very simple, sir. Now India is rated as number 3 on purchasing power parity basis as a global economy in terms of total GDP, and it is expected to become perhaps number 2 in the next couple of years. The point is, no country which is already developed, which is sitting on the G7 table, is going to allow India to sit on the table just like that. So always the declining powers are much more active in destabilizing the developing powers, and this is a very simple global, what you may loosely call the uh, tussle which goes on, and G7 is in a terminal decline. They used to have 52% of the global share of national income on PPP basis, purchasing power parity basis, global income, and now it is of the order of something like 32% and expected to become 25%. So the decline of G7 is very clear, and it is not going to be reversed. And so they are in a very tight situation or difficult situation, and they visualize India to be a very major threat. So on one side you have the issues of church, which visualizes, incidentally, India is one of the major outsourcing partner in terms of creating more number of nuns and bishops and what you may loosely call priest, because the number of people going into seminary and nunnery has come down significantly in Europe, even in US. It used to be running into something like a lakh or one and a half lakh in the 50s and 60s. Now it is hardly even 1,000. Very, very less number of people are getting into, which means the church requires a huge amount of manpower from countries of like India, because they have already adequately exhausted Latin America as well as Africa. In order to maintain their gardens, assets, and clean their stained glasses and other things. This is for all type of churches, not just for the Vatican, all the New Age churches and other. You can see actually, if you, for instance, in the southern part of the country, if you drive through the sea coast from Chennai to Pondicherry, the number of churches which have mushroomed is unbelievable actually. The entire, and many other small towns in south, you find huge number of churches have come about, where the population of Christian is claimed to be 3%, 4%. This many number of churches is something unimaginable. Whereas in Western countries, particularly the Europe and the UK, many of the churches, they are converting into pubs actually, and maybe in both cases you go high, in terms of one is spiritualism, and another is also spiritualism directly. So that is what is happening. So that is
one is metaphorical and one is literal.
Huh?
One is metaphorical and one is literal.
So this is the, so what I want to stress is any type of these threat or perceived threat, even if you ask me, to the prime minister of our country, it doesn't matter whether he is a BJP prime minister or Congress prime minister or anything, because there are large amount of unsolved issues. Even in the case of Rajiv Gandhi assassination, they constituted multidisciplinary task force in 1998. Kindly remember, 1998.
Right.
Today we are in 2018.
18.
That means 20 years have roughly gone. That task force is yet to submit its report. So there is a, some amount of what one can call weariness, or some amount of, and obviously you get to see large amount of what one can call conspiracy theories. One or two issues which is yet not solved is, along with Rajiv Gandhi, no Congress leader was killed. Not even an ordinary Congress worker. So much is fascinating because he is so popular and he is so much loved by his own party people, as well as others in the country. He was always surrounded by them. But at the exact tragic moment, there were none around him. And there is also rumors that then Karunanidhi was supposed to have addressed the meeting along with Rajiv Gandhi, and last minute he cancelled it. The point I want to stress is, there are many unanswered questions in the assassination of him, as well as in the assassination of Indira Gandhi. So we are not considered as a nation which is serious about its leaders and their assassination. Of course, you can say even John F. Kennedy, there is so much amount of conspiracy theories still floating around. Who killed him? Some schools of thought saying FBI killed him. Some say CIA killed him. Some say, so many other type of thing. And that's a one-off type of a event as far as US is concerned. Because kindly note, after Abraham Lincoln, it was such a huge, but in our case, within a short span of something like 10, 20 years, we had unfortunate. The third point is, the people who are arrested are stated to be, some of them, almost all of them are well educated, lawyers, journalists, and various other type of professionals. One is actually from Tata Institute of Social Sciences and also JNU, and these people are all called what are called activists. And this unfortunately, the institution like TIS, JNU, and a couple of other places are producing significant number of these activists. In the 1970s, Nur al Hasan started a large number of social science schools across the country, in Calcutta, in Hyderabad, in Trivandrum, in Chennai. And at that time, he told all these institutions will produce, the left-oriented communist like cockroaches, and they will be absorbed in various other institutions. It was a grand, long-term strategy of Nur al-Hasan under Indira Gandhi, and I would say it has succeeded actually, because all these institutions have given rise to huge number of what you may loosely call communist, who are in various research and academic institutions of the country actually, in which case they decide regarding the future PhD scholars and the type of topic they will study and other thing. The point I want to stress is, these left Marxist, they believe in one principle called praxis. That means you have to practice what you say. It's not just like other type of intellectuals who write books and then may be sold, may not be sold, but still they keep quiet. But these people are expected to practice, and this is what this TIS educated person, he was actually a very interesting, he got a fellowship on rural development studies, and he was a conduit between urban Naxalites and the Naxalites in Gadchiroli. Actually, the word Naxalite itself is very funny, because the Naxalbari movement has completely died, and the entire Naxalbari belt is now saffron. is full of sympathizers and supporters of RSS and BJP. But they are still called Naxalite. Much better word will be terrorist. They are terrorists. And they are extremely unhappy for the simple reason, significant number of districts, around 160 plus districts were affected by Naxalites some 10 years before. And the data today suggests something like 40-45 only are significantly impacted today. Many districts have been removed by the Home Ministry from being classified as Naxalite affected district. And they are met with significant amount of setbacks in terms of CRPF and various other arms of the army raiding their dens and then capturing many of them, and also killing many of them in encounters. So on the other side, you find there is a group of these uh, what you may loosely call Naxal terrorists who are disgruntled, and so there is a sort of a alliance coming between them and the church, which are independently upset about the role of Modi government in denying what one can call foreign contributions to Indian conversion activities. The third group is LTT. They have a huge amount of funds which is stored abroad. They used to collect something like anywhere between 3 to 6% as from every Sri Lankan Tamil settled in various parts of the world compulsorily. There was no other choice for them actually. This was told to me in Switzerland, in Germany, in France by uh, Tamil community people. So they have collected huge amount of money and stashed it in various banks and other things. Incidentally, church also has got huge amount of money from Saint Teresa. She collected maybe around 2 billion from dictators like your uh, Papa, the earlier of Haiti. He was a dictator, Panamanian dictator. So many of them, they all gave her money. These dictators, they might have thought they will wash their all their sins by giving her huge amount of money. One possibility, and which she was supposed to use for the poor of this country, poor of India actually, and she has kept it in Vatican Bank, and Vatican Bank is under investigation for various other misdemeanors today. Nobody in India, neither the Indian government nor the India, has ever raised the question about what happened to those billions of money. So churches got huge amount of money meant for India actually. So there is a interesting congruence is taking place between Naxals or Naxal terrorist, the disgruntled church group, and the LTT, which is a banned organization within the country, but which it is active with impunity in Tamil Nadu and some other parts of South India. So this is something, and why they are angry with Modi is clear. Some of their literature clearly says that already is running the central government, and something like 20 to 23 states are under the control of the Modi's political party. If you allow it, the entire country will come under his domain. And I am puzzled on two things. Of course, I always lightheartedly used to say the SPG cover to many of the netas is actually to protect all of us from the neta, not for protecting the neta. Actually, the other day when I was going to Bombay in the airport, one made important leader was going surrounded by huge number of SPG personnel, and one little girl was standing nearby and told her mother, Amma, ashtu dodda kallar hoidare, she told. Such a big dacoit is going, because for that little girl, if somebody is surrounded by so many cops and he is walking, he has to be a great dacoit only. She doesn't understand about the concept of leaders and other thing in India. Anyhow, our mom scolded her, and I told her, Mom, she is not very wrong, don't scold her, and like that, it went. Point is, I always think that most of our netas don't deserve any of these type of SPG cover. For instance, SPG cover is given to the sons-in-law of Devagowda, not his son, who is the minister and other thing. Some of the sons-in-law are, in the medical profession and Absolutely, there is no worry or concern about many of these, and many of them who are given SPG cover. I don't think will anybody will ever bother to go near them and try to attack them. But this is not necessarily true for all the leaders. Some leaders are under genuine amount of threat and concern and worry. The point very interesting in India is many of the mainstream media, what you may loosely call the commentators in the television channel as well as print media, has taken it very lightly. They say that how can the police get emails from these what you may loosely call the conspirator, who will write in email the need to. The whole thing is they have been planning what is called a Rajiv Gandhi type of situation. Now many of these groups are using the email is not something unknown actually. That these were exchanged in email, and to the extent of asking for a couple of crores in order to procure weapons by the Maoist group was also mentioned. The point is these mainstream media people trying to completely what you may loosely call reduce the credibility of our police as well as investigating agency. The same thing they did after the massacre undertaken by the Pakistani agents at this what you may loosely call the Bombay hotels, Taj and other hotels. That time, many of the same commentators made it appear that it was not done by Pakistanis, it was not done, it was done by perhaps Indians themselves. Like this, all this, we are a very fascinating country where if a trainload of people get burnt, immediately some of the people in the mainstream media says they poured kerosene on themselves and burnt themselves. That type of, this is the explanation given for the burning in that Gujarat 2002 when the train was burnt. And so I think one is they are extraordinarily cynical, many of the major commentators in the mainstream media. Second is they also feel completely cut off from the decision making processes in Delhi. They used to be so proud, that they were making and unmaking ministers. They used to get what are known as the exclusive briefings. They used to get, of course, all type of gifts and not gift mean not a pen or something. It is in the form of houses, cars, and foreign joints and other things. They have lost many of those things. So they are extraordinarily unhappy about this government because this government takes along with it what you may loosely call the Doordarshan, or the government channel people for foreign trips, doesn't provide cases of liquor to all these journalists, and most of the journalists are extremely unhappy about it actually. That's, let's be very clear about it, because they are not in any way in any decision making loop or anything. They have to get news as much from newspaper as you and me are getting it. There are no more exclusives for them. So they have become very, very anti-government, anti-Modi, as well as very cynical and completely subversive in their writings and other. So this is very, I would say, very, very dangerous state of affairs, that an attempt on the prime minister of a country, which is the third largest in terms of purchasing power parity, is being treated with so much amount of callousness and cynicism. This doesn't speak well of us actually. And I only hope, I'm not talking about BJP prime minister, or it could be any prime minister. It can be like if the schemes of all these opposition parties succeed in terms of having alliance of some, I think 114.3 parties they are planning.
What is the decimal, sir? What is 114.3? What is 114.3?
14.3 mean, some parties which are not very sure. 2/3, 1/3, some they may be this side, some they may be that side. What I want to say is finally, it is like our friend Satyarthi who says he has, liberated some, who got the Nobel Prize also. He is supposed to have liberated 76,423.7 children. And he says he threatens periodically that he is going to show all of them in Delhi. He has never shown even 5 of them. Anyhow, so if under these schemes of the opposition, if suppose somebody becomes like Madhu Koda became he was a one party, one independent member in Jharkhand. He became a chief minister actually for a couple of months. So if somebody like that becomes CM also, PM also, it's a very important thing. Even if there is a threat to him, it should be completely exposed and protected, because these are constitutional position. This has got nothing to do with he being your leader or my leader. These are constitutional position, and I think it is most important that we should take all possible steps in order to reduce threat to these people, because threat to these people automatically means threat to the sovereignty of the country. It is nothing to do with threat to a particular leader or something, and it will damage the country. It will create everybody knows what happened after the killing of Indira Gandhi. There was a social turmoil, and large number of innocent Sikhs were affected and killed, and all over the country there were riots. That is not the type of situation which we should think of or hope for, and that is the situation exactly with the other inimical forces of India, what you may loosely call breaking India forces. That is the word, if I remember correctly, was used by Rajiv Malhotra in one of his pioneering work. It is what those forces will be uh, eagerly waiting or opting for. I think the code word or the important word is alert. Alert for citizens as well as for the security forces. Citizens, because I think they should be cautious in trying to be over enthusiastic and trying to mix with their leaders like Modi in the public place. And as well as security forces, there is no need to, there are no two opinion, but they should enhance and they should be much more alert. And mainstream media commentators and experts should reduce their cynicism. They would get their gifts and other things. If they think the new composition of this 114.3 parties come into power, but I am not very sure about it. Not sure about they coming to power. These people getting the gift, because if so many of them come to power, so the gifts will get reduced. So some journalists will get only 2 tires or something, not a full car. Some journalists will get perhaps the steering wheel only. They have to, they have to make do with it, right? So that is the so it's extremely important. The reason why I am criticizing this mainstream media commentator is they are spreading significant amount of cynicism in the country, which is the most dangerous thing. If you are cynical about many of these news and issues and other things, and you sit in your air conditioned studios or air conditioned room and then make some flippant observation and other thing, it's an extremely sad state of affairs. So there is a tripartite agreement between the church and the Maoist and LTT terrorist. So there is all the more reason for one to be careful about them, b try to minimize their impact, c of course nip them in the bud. That is what I would like to tell. See, our current NSA Ajit Doval is very well known for his activities as well as for his strategic thinking. Earlier, he was in Pakistan. Many people may not be knowing, in the sense of under the guise of being a Islamic with the Islamic name, and he has carried out significant amount of what you may loosely call activities there. The point I want to stress is, since we were talking about MSM, he was awarded. He is actually belonging to Kerala cadre. He was awarded by the government, if I remember correctly, one of the Veer Chakras. Now that time, the Chennai-based, sort of generally pro-Naxal type of newspaper, the Hindu, wrote an editorial, believe me, criticizing the award given to him, and then castigating him as having instigated terror in Pakistan and responsible for so many lives and other things. Can you believe this? An Indian newspaper attacking. At that time, he was not in a position of being an NSA or anything. He has already left his earlier job, and he was as chief of IB, and he was actually working as a director in Vivekananda International Foundation, one of the NGOs at Delhi. The newspaper wrote that, and then many people, including myself, wrote to them that this is very unfair. It's not the way to treat one of our senior most security expert and other thing. And the paper sort of gave a type of an apology, that they didn't mean, and it was rumored that one who wrote that editorial is actually, one doesn't know actually, because in newspapers you never know exactly who read there could be a team. It was rumored that it was done by one Siddharth Varadarajan, who is not an Indian citizen, and due to various other reasons, he left later the paper. The point I want to stress is our mainstream media and reasonably well-respected newspaper like Hindu can go to any level in order to denigrate and ridicule our security and security apparatus and security experts is something which is of real concern, should be of real concern to all of us.
Viewers, Jawaharlal Nehru used to call the Hindu as Mount Road Mahavishnu, because those days, what is
Yes.
Anna Salai used to be called Mount Road, because it led from beach or
Yes.
to the Thomas, which is where they had, I think, guns, and there was a fort there.
Right.
So he used to call it Mount Road Mahavishnu. Maybe perhaps Professor RV, you should coin them as Mount Road Mahanaxal.
Right. They actually, I call them as an Excel tabloid. So it's a sort of a pro, right?
Yeah.
It's a very interesting journey for that newspaper. Some other time we will only discuss that actually.
And viewers, we started a new series about the role of Vatican and Church in India's politics. And the first segment came out today, and I would urge all of you to read it, because this takes up a very specific case and what happened in that specific instance. And this was in 1958-59. So we'll come back to you again with more news. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.